Welcome to In the Know with Erin Glow, a podcast bringing you information and inspiration from people in all walks of life. This is comedian Janet McNamara. All right, guys, so welcome to another episode of In the Know with Erin Glow. In this episode, I have my longtime friend, Janet. Janet McNamara is a Boston-based comic, and she has thrilled audiences across the country with comedy that balances the search for identity with the search for a parking spot. From the first word, audiences are treated to an original perspective and an awkward energy that captivates undergrad hipsters and suburban housewives, sometimes at the same show, usually around Christmas. So I want to welcome Janet to the show. Thank you so much for being here, Janet.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. It's been a while since we talked, but you're like this big comedian now, and I thought it would be fun to... You are, though. Come on, give yourself credit. I thought it would be fun to kind of, look back on your life and when we knew each other. We still know each other, obviously, but I mean, when we used to hang out a lot back in Boston, and just what you're doing now, so people can know about you that don't know about you already.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do it.
All right, so yeah, we've known each other for, do you remember like the year we met? I don't remember the exact year we met, but it was in the 2000s.
Probably close to about 20 years.
Has it
you
been?
were like 16 or 17. I remember you were a kid. You were living with your mom.
Yeah.
And you may have been 18, but you were young.
Yeah. It was before I went to college.
I think I'm 4 or 5 years older than you, I think, right?
Well, how old are you now?
I'm 40.
Yeah,
40.
well, I just turned 38, so yeah, not too much
okay.
older. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, you must have been like 17, I must have been 19 or something. Or you must have been 18, I must have been 20.
Yeah, I think it was right like around the end of high school for me.
Yeah, I know we went to a show where we were in the under 21 group.
Yeah, that's right.
Together.
Yeah, we're gonna talk more about those times a little bit later in the interview. But yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know I have known you for years, and I have seen you progress from afar, and it's been the coolest thing. I'm so happy for you. But yeah, we're gonna go into who you are, your career, everything. So you're a comic now, you're a professional comic, but you weren't always that. So why don't you tell me what you were like as a child? Tell everyone where you grew up. Were you always a funny person, always an awkward person, as you call yourself? Do you remember any certain struggles that you went through that kind of led you to be who you are right now?
Yeah, sure. I was a weird kid. I grew up in a town called Randolph, Massachusetts, which was kind of like I wouldn't call it a shithole, but it was a little bit, it was a suburb of Boston, but not really. Boston was different back then. And then I grew up there. We used to walk to school. Elementary school was tough. I didn't really get along with, I didn't have a ton of friends in elementary school and stuff like that. I was really annoying, and I was trying to be funny, but I was mostly just really annoying. And then I went to middle school, got a little bit less annoying. High school, I was funnier. And then college, I was funny. And then I always wanted to do comedy. It was a bucket list item, and I just was too scared to do it. When I was about 26 or 27, I just bit the bullet and did it after American Idol.
Which we're going to talk about
That's kind of the story on that, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I got started into it from doing that show. But I was basically, I was a really, really shy kid growing up. Like, I remember my aunt said I didn't say a word to her till I was 16. I was a super shy kid. I was shy, and then when I did talk to people, I was annoying. And like my friend said to me the other day, which was really funny, she said that shyness is just scared of rejection, which is pretty true, because I was really shy, and if I wasn't shy, I got rejected because I was annoying. So it was a catch-22. And comics are just annoying people in general. Like, that's who we are. We're very annoying, self-centered people who like to talk a lot.
No, it's true that shyness is, you are afraid of being rejected. I had the social anxiety disorder as a kid, so I totally get that. And usually those are the people that end up being the most creative, I found, because they have so many things going on in their head, and then it just comes out in other ways. Do you feel like you lacked confidence as a kid?
Oh, I had no confidence as a kid. I played sports and I was really good at sports. I had a lot of confidence in like my athletic ability, but I also knew that I was a girl and that I stunk compared to boys. And I also knew it was like a really depressive thing that I used to think all the time, which was like there's really no point in like being good at sports is like the least of anything to be good at that's important because as an adult, there's no point in being good at sports. I used to think that all the time as a kid. Whenever somebody would say like, "But you're good at sports. You're not that like you can't read, but you're good at sports and stuff like that." But yeah, but that was basically I did play a lot of sports.
What kind of sports?
Um, I played it all. I was a wicked tomboy. I grew up. I my neighborhood was all boys, so I played basketball, soccer, softball. I was on varsity all three through my freshman through senior year of high school, and then I played freshman year softball in college, and then I quit because it wasn't fun. It was just a lot of pressure and a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I played everything. That's the only reason why I hung out with people was because I was playing sports with them. And that's how I met friends and got friends was that I was good at sports, so I was good at their team. But life was different in the 90s than it is like in 2000. Like you were weird if you were a girl and you liked sports back then. It wasn't like it is now.
Yeah,
I
you're
was kind of
right.
ostracized for it. Yeah.
Do you have any siblings? You have siblings, right?
Yeah, I have a twin brother who's like an extremely good looking, like he was a child prodigy. Like he got straight A's all the way through. We went to Randolph Public Schools in elementary school, which was like a really bad school system. And then my brother ended up going to Thayer Academy, which is like a really prestigious prep school in middle school. He did terrible in middle school because he was so behind the other kids because our school system was so bad. And then he ended up working his way all the way up to he ended up second in the class when he graduated. He's doing great. He went to Cornell. Now he works for Facebook. He has a 5-year-old and a newborn on the way, so he's doing really good. He lives in Australia.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
we're buddies growing up.
I didn't know he moved away. Okay. Do you get to
Yeah,
see
he
him
lives in Australia.
very much?
I try to go every year, but I go closer to every other year. I haven't been since pre-pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That makes sense.
But honestly, it's hard with the comedy schedule because you get 3 weeks vacation a year, and then it takes 2.5 weeks just to go to Australia because the flight is so long. So that only gives you like 4 days to do any type of road work. So you go to New York City twice. You take 3 weekends in New York City, and there goes all your vacation time.
Right. Is he planning on coming home for the holidays or does he stay out there?
He's coming twice. He's coming in April and then he's coming back in 4th of July. So it's really exciting there. He has a wedding that he's coming home for, and then him and his whole family are coming for 2 weeks in July. So that'll
Nice.
be great. Yeah, we're super close. We talk every Friday. His wife is great, and we get along. Obviously, we butted heads a lot growing up, but we were also best friends. It was a one-off. Like our parents were divorced, so we spent every single weekend at my dad's house together, hanging out. So all we really had was each other to hang out with. So that's what we did.
He's your only sibling.
He's my only sibling. Now I have three step siblings.
Okay.
But I didn't meet them until I was like in my late 20s. So we didn't like grow up together. We're not close in any way, shape, or form. And then technically, I have two other step siblings because my dad was married briefly when I was in high school slash college. And she had two kids. I only met one of them. It was like this weird green card marriage situation that
Okay.
it was she didn't speak English. Like he met her, he was managing Dunkin' Donuts and she worked at Dunkin' Donuts, and then all of a sudden they were engaged and then they got married the day of my high school graduation. It was this whole hoopla of a situation, but you know, life is fun. It's she had two kids, but I wouldn't even if you gave me $1 million, I wouldn't tell you their name.
So it was just like a brief moment in your life.
Yeah, I was like between the age of like 17 and 24 when they were married. So maybe 23. So I was like in that age where I was in college. I had my own life. I wasn't really obviously it was devastating when he first got married, but as far as like being around her like and she didn't speak English. So she said like 10 words. So you kind of like
Oh.
went over, if you went over his house, you went over there and you just kind of like, she said like, hi, 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 how are you? And that was about the whole conversation. And then she went and did her thing, and I talked to my dad. So it was fine. We got along fine. It was, everybody knew exactly what was going on except my dad. Everybody knew it was a green card marriage except my dad.
Wow. So you think it was just a green card marriage on her end?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Oh,
My
okay.
dad was like probably 400 pounds at the time. He had no money. He didn't really have a huge amount to offer. She didn't seem to like him that much. She ended up just like, at one point she just left. She just moved out one day, and my dad was like, I don't know where she went. And then like 4 years later, he got a letter in the mail from a lawyer that basically said like, sign this and you'll be divorced. She doesn't want anything as long as you don't want anything. It was the easiest divorce in the world. She did all the work. It was the easiest divorce for him because all he had to do was sign a piece of paper and it was over. But
Wow.
it was like almost, she moved out almost exactly 3 years into the marriage.
And that would give her the green card?
Yes. And then they didn't get divorced for another 3 or 4 years after that, but they hadn't seen each other for a couple of years. He had no idea where she was, kind of a situation.
Oh man, I feel kind of bad for your
Yeah.
dad. Well, did he take it hard or?
You feel bad for my dad, but he also eloped the day of my high school graduation, so it's kind of like fuck him,
Oh, that's true.
you
Yeah,
know.
for you.
It's
Yeah,
kind of a
that's.
it's kind of a dick thing to do.
So he didn't go to your graduation?
Oh, sorry, he did it the day before my graduation. He
Okay.
did go to my graduation. I was scared because he eloped. I was scared he was going to announce his wedding at my graduation, and then my grandmother would make a big scene. But that didn't end up happening. But like my aunt had already told my grandmother, it ended up working out fine. But it was really anxiety provoking at the time and really dramatic.
Yeah, it sounds
Because
like
your
you kind of
parents getting
blocked a
married
lot
is
of
a
it
big
out.
deal. Yeah, it was also, it was 20 years ago, and obviously, yeah, I blocked a lot of it out. It's my dad died, so it's hard to stay being mad at him
Oh,
for
I'm
stupid stuff.
sorry. I didn't know that. Okay.
Um, he died like 12 years ago. It's okay, or he died like 11 years ago. So it's kind of like one of those things that when somebody dies, you stop getting mad at them for stuff.
Oh yeah.
You just
Yeah.
think of like the good things. So,
Yeah, you realize,
but
they're just human, at the end of the day.
yeah, they're flawed. He was a 400-pound guy. Like, how else was he gonna get laid? You know,
Oh,
he was a 400-pound guy that was in debt. You know, like he he didn't really have a lot of prospects. And then this lady came along, and yeah,
it's good that you can let that kind of anger go though, but and just because I like lost both my parents now, and it's weird. It's a weird feeling, like just because even though they're only human when they're alive, it's like when they're gone, you're kind of just like, wow, they really were only human. I shouldn't have been so upset half the time, you know?
yeah, exactly. You forget a lot of that stuff. I remember the day he died. I was annoyed. The day before he died, I was annoyed because he was in my car and he had just thrown his trash in the back seat. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? And I remember I texted my brother about it. And then the next morning, I got the call that he had a heart attack. And it was like, then
Oh,
that became, instead of it being like something that he did that was really annoying, it was something that he did that was pretty funny. Like, in a matter of just finding out he was dead.
right, right. Wow. So it was unexpected.
Yeah, it's kind of funny the way he died. He was in Quincy Center in Massachusetts, and he picked up a hitchhiker in Quincy Center. I don't know how he did it. I guess the hitchhiker, he was with his girlfriend. The hitchhiker was like annoying the shit out of him, and he pulled over, and his girlfriend thought he was going to kick the hitchhiker out of the car, and he ended up just like leaning back and having a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
But it's kind of like, to a degree, it's funny because it's just like, what was that hitchhiker thinking? Like, he just like got in a car and the guy died.
I know on his part, right? Wow.
Yeah.
But that's yeah, you
Um,
have to make and that's what you're good at. I know that you make humor out of tough things in life and sometimes that helps.
yeah, absolutely. And time helps also. It was 10 or 11 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, it never really goes away that feeling, but it does. Yeah, you kind of learn to live with it.
Yeah, it doesn't go away, but it's not as like you're not crying every day kind of thing. You're
Yeah.
not like part of like when somebody first dies is like you remember everything that you're never going to have again. Once you go through that whole process, you kind of are like, all right, I remembered. I'm never going to be able to have him change my oil. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to do this. And then you think of all the things that you're going to miss about him, and that kind of goes away. But that takes like a couple of years, I think, to like get through um, the shock of it.
Yeah, I think it gets, at first, it's like kind of a numbing feeling. I mean, everybody's different, but I feel like generally at first it's like a numbing feeling. And then as like you get closer to a year, it almost gets worse because then you're realizing, oh yeah, I'm not going to have all that. They're not here. And yeah, it just almost gets like worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I remember texting my friend and just being like, "At what point do you like stop crying?" Because I thought I'd stop crying after like a week, you know, but it just takes a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's just grief. I don't think this is a whole other topic for a whole other conversation, but I don't think our society talks about grief enough. It's always like a thing where you need to avoid it, or, oh, you need to stay strong, or all this stuff. And I think that can be damaging a lot of the time because people feel like grief is not normal. And if they're crying a lot, it's like, oh, what's wrong with me? When it's completely normal, especially
Yeah,
if it's somebody like a parent. But,
yeah,
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, you went to high school. Did you go to college?
yes. I went to Elmira College in upstate New York, and then I went to grad school too. I went to Suffolk for grad school,
Okay, and what did you study there?
accounting.
That's right. I remember that now. Yes. It's completely different
Yes.
from what you're doing now.
Well, I'm still doing accounting.
Oh, you still are.
Believe it
Okay.
or not, comedy doesn't pay that many bills. Like this weekend, I'm headlining Nick's Comedy Stop in Boston. It's like where Bill Burr started. It's like a big club. I'm making. I'll tell you how much I'm making. I'm making $300 for the weekend.
Wow.
So it's not, and this is like a big show that I have coming up. Like so, this week I'll make three, four. I'll make like. Actually, this week I'm headlining a show Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I have a show tonight. I'll make like $500 this week, maybe four, but that's a really good week. Is like $400.
Wow, that's crazy. So basically, comedy doesn't pay your bills all the way.
No, comedy doesn't pay bills. It's a really good supplemental income. It makes a huge difference as far as lifestyle goes. But I make like probably between 15 and $18,000 a year, and that's after doing it for 12 years and working my ass off. So if I were to go full time, I could probably pull off 30. It would be, I would go into debt if I didn't have a job, is basically
Right.
the point. And the people who are able to do it full time either produce shows and make money that way or have trust funds.
Exactly. You see like comics that they're always doing shows like every single week, and that's kind of just what you have to do to get to a point where maybe you can do it for like a living without doing something else. But it takes a while and it takes like a real breakthrough. Comics are some of the hardest working people I know, doing stuff
There's
every single week.
there's no point in doing comedy if you're not doing it a minimum of 3 times a week. Um, I do it at least five. There's no point in doing it because you're never going to get funny. You're never going to be good if you do it less than 3 times a week. It's a waste of your time.
Exactly.
So,
Now, let's get into. I wanted to mention when we met each other and kind of some of the adventures that we've been on in the past that I remember you from because it's like they're very. I have to tell everybody when you hang out with Janet, it is a memorable experience. You could be doing absolutely nothing, and you will make it memorable somehow. So,
I always liked hanging out with you because you said yes.
no one else said yes. That's surprising to me.
I have like a great idea. People are like, no, that's stupid. And you are always like, that's brilliant. Let's do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were fun, and I didn't have many friends either because I was awkward and quiet, and. So we met through our love of Hanson. Everyone I know that knows me personally knows my favorite band is Hanson, knows I've loved them since I was 12 years old. And I met you. Was it through Hanson.net? Was it through their website, I believe, right? Or was it just through like the message boards or something? Or what? Did we meet at a concert? I don't even.
Hanson.net. It was. I actually remember there was a sold out show and you had a ticket to it, and I wanted your ticket, but part of me getting the ticket is I had to drive, which I didn't realize at the time. I had to drive to like East Bumfuck to come pick you up.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah, because I had no one to go with.
Like, I had to pick you up. Yeah, I like picked you up, and we went to. Did no, we didn't meet at the Northeastern show. We had already gone way back by then. There was some ticket that you had that I wanted, and I was willing to drive to wherever the fuck you lived. It was like the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Like, well,
I remember driving to the middle of nowhere.
It's about 40 minutes from Boston Drive. But yeah, because I think the show was in Boston.
But I picked you up. Yeah, I lived in Braintree at the time. I was in Braintree. I drove to Fall River, drove us to Boston, and then drove you back to Fall River.
Yeah, you were...
And I think I still paid you for the ticket.
Did I? I don't remember. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know if like I paid you for gas or if we had a deal. I don't know. I was so young back then that I was just trying to get to a Hanson show and nobody would bring me.
I think that's exactly what it was. I think it was a sold out show that you had tickets to, and I was basically willing to do whatever it took to go to the sold out show. And
yeah, and I was willing to meet you
happen.
as a stranger. Technically, you were a stranger, but we talked on the website for a little bit.
Barely talked on the website, and then the following time we saw each other, we got on a plane and went to Tulsa.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom being like, "How do you know this girl?" And I was like, "I picked her up once at 2:00 in the morning in Fall River."
It wasn't that late. That's when you brought me home. Not picked me up.
I dropped you off at like 2:00 in the morning because we probably showed up to the concert because we were dorks. We probably got there at 7 a.m. I probably picked you up at like 5 a.m. And we probably sat in line at the concert all day.
Yeah. It was like really random. I think it was just we really wanted to go to this concert and we didn't care that we didn't really know each other. We were taking a risk. We're like, but then as soon as I met you, I knew you were harmless. You were gonna. It was kind of like I just felt your vibe was like you were just Janet. You were just who you are.
Yeah.
And I think the older I get, at least for me, the older I get, it's harder to remember. And I did write all these things in a journal, but all my like Hanson stuff is back in Massachusetts in storage right now. So I have to wait till I get that. Yeah. But yeah, all that information is in there, but it's hard to remember just from memory. So
I know we went to Hampton Beach together at some point.
Yeah.
Because I remember we had this thing where we used to cut people in line.
Well, we were in the hot heat half the time, and like we were.
Yeah, I think we waited once. We got there at like 7 a.m. and waited once, and we still ended up like pretty far back because everybody just cut, and we were like, we're just gonna start cutting, and we just started being ruthless.
Yeah, but people were really bad back then. Like I don't know if it's like that today. I actually recently went to a Hanson show last week, and I actually got to interview them, and I'll tell you more about that later. But it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be, though. There weren't nearly as many people. Back then, they would line up, like, even sometimes days in advance, just because they were always general admission shows. So in order for you to get close to the front, you had to line up really early. And then as soon as they open the doors, you can run up to the stage and be in the front, because it's all standing room, no seats. And the only reason I ever wanted to do that was, yes, I wanted to be closer. But if I was in the middle or in the back, I couldn't see because I was too short.
Yeah, you also had bad eyes, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, until I I still have contacts today, but it was that, but it was mostly, it was being short too. Like, it wasn't like a stage where it would kind of rise in the back. No, it was like all one level. So if you weren't in the front or on a step somewhere, you couldn't see if you were my height.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a pain.
I'm 5'8", so like I could see.
Yeah, you were the complete opposite. Yeah. But we were in there I remember, wasn't there one where they played the club right across the street from Fenway, and we were sitting out there in the heat.
Yeah, that one I remember. People had like tents and stuff, and everybody thought we were waiting for the Harry Potter release.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I remember that one.
And there was a
Um,
game at the same time. So not only were you dealing with these Hanson fans that some of them are really crazy and they're just rude and mean, and you were also dealing with the drunk fans at the Red Sox game across the street. So they were all bumping into you every time you would
yeah,
go to a store and get a drink or going on the subway or whatever. It's like crazy.
yeah, and they were just mocking us for like sitting and waiting for a Hanson concert kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it was tough to be a Hanson fan back in those days. It really was. Like, because they were
yeah,
popular the first, like,
yeah,
97, 98. Everybody loved them. But then they kind of, the music
they
industry moved on. They got their own record label. Nobody really paid attention to them anymore except for the true diehard fans.
yeah,
And then you
they just
became.
had probably, I would say, 10 to 30,000 really diehard fans like you or I, and you or I aren't even the biggest Hanson fans there are. Like, you don't buy like the deluxe package every time they come out with a new album. You know what I mean? Like,
I
you go to the shows that are near you. Like,
Yeah,
you
well,
do.
no, I did buy a deluxe package for one of their, actually two of them, but no, I'm not the type, because there are like a small group of the fans where they'll actually travel wherever they go on tour, like every
Yeah,
city, and they will save up all
yeah,
their money just to do that, and then they're broke by the end of the tour, and it's not even like they get special privileges. They're just literally following them around like groupies, like, following them around, watching their shows, staying in
they are.
hotels, just, yeah, I mean, they're not like even in with the band. It's just they're at every show and that's what they do. And I don't know if that's, I mean, I don't like to say they're bigger Hanson fans than us. They just use their their money for that, and we actually have to work for a living to keep a roof over our head.
Yeah,
But like, yeah,
yeah.
I just don't know how they do
Yeah,
it.
it's like, yeah, I feel like that's probably why. Well, the two reasons why the shows are smaller now is, first of all, because of Hanson Gate, and then second of all, because the fans are older. Like, the fans have kids. Like, you can't go to 5, 6, 10, 20 shows a tour if you have kids at home, you know?
No,
And a
but
lot of these fans are like from small towns. They got married when they were 25 or 30, they have kids.
yeah, the ones that are
Um,
still following them around, I
but
don't think have kids or anything like that. And I think, yeah, because I actually, at the shows last week, they did 3 shows in LA last week. I went to them and I saw this girl that she was known as one of those fans that would follow them around everywhere back in the day. And I've never even met the girl. I've never talked to her, but I've seen her at every show, and she's like on the message boards. They talk about how she's one of those people that follows them around. And I'm just like, oh my God, all these years later, she's still here. And like, it's just crazy. In a way, it's like, you're like, well, that's dedication. But it's also like, she must have something, like maybe somebody's helping her pay for this, or, because I don't understand how you can go around and not have a regular job and then be able to like live somewhere if you're not getting help after,
yeah,
without that money. I don't know.
it's like similar to the Grateful Dead, but different. Like, I listen to a lot of the Grateful Dead, and I went to a bunch of their shows last year. And like, but like, people make money on the Grateful Dead, like doing like small stuff, like selling T-shirts and stuff. But people don't do that on Hanson tours. They, yeah, I think they sleep outside waiting for the show to start. Like, I don't know how they get the vacation time. It made sense when I was in college. I've probably been to 30 shows. I probably went to 19 of them while I was in college, or like the first year or two out of college, because you have the summer off. When I was 19, I could drive 7 hours to a show and then drive 7 hours home. I remember driving to like New Jersey before and back to go to a show because I didn't have a hotel room. And like, you could do that when you're younger.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, and you didn't have any
but I
responsibility.
think they're supported somehow. Like, I think some of them are rich kids. Like, I think they think that like Hanson at some point is going to be like their friend. Like, if they defend them enough online, they're going to be like, "Hey, thanks for defending me. Why don't you be my friend? I'll let you babysit my kids." Like, I don't know what these fans are thinking.
Yeah, I think it's because I know what you're talking about. There are a lot of people. I mean, they love their music, but they also make it more about using them as like a way to fill a hole inside that they're feeling, or like, and
Yeah,
that
it's
can be tricky because it can, if you take it too
yeah,
far.
it's tough because it's like when it's your identity. If the most interesting thing about you is that you're a Hanson fan, that's your identity. And you've seen 30 concerts, you spend all your money on them. It's hard when it's been something that's been your identity for 25 years. It's really hard to not continue it being your identity, and to come up with a new identity, to come up with new things to be interested in.
Yeah, I think the key is to separate yourself from liking a band and who you are, because those should be two different things. I mean, that's just part of what you like. It shouldn't be who you are.
Yeah, and life changes. People change as they get older. Priorities are different, like when I was in my 20s, like I went to a million concerts and I followed around this band and I did all this stuff, and now I do a bunch of stand up and I drive around doing a bunch of stand up. It's the same thing. It's the same obsession. I'm just obsessed with something different.
Right. You use your energy toward your comedy mostly now, as and yeah, I mean, we do that throughout
Yeah.
our lives. We use our energy, like when people have families. Most of the time, they use all their energy with their family. I've always said if I do have kids, yeah, kids will be your priority. That's your most important thing in your life. But at the same time, I feel like there also needs to be a balance, or you'll drive yourself crazy if you don't do stuff that you want to do alone.
Hmm.
That's when it gets, it can be scary where you start projecting all of that anger and that frustration onto your family, and then it can cause issues. And I think it's important to know, even when you have kids and you have a family, even though that takes up most of your time, you always got to carve out time for yourself, even if it's just like an hour a week, to kind of, be who you are, whether that means
Yep.
going to a Hanson show
Yeah,
or a
exactly.
comedy show. I think that's important.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't do that nowadays. I've noticed, like, they're just always complaining instead of doing something about it, a lot of them.
Yeah, I think kids are really difficult. From my understanding of having kids, from just talking to my cousins and stuff, is that they end up just not missing their old life. Like they don't miss going to the bars, they don't miss late nights. They're kind of happy spending time with their family and their kids. But obviously, once a month, once every couple weeks, they want to go out. They want to do something.
Yeah, as long as I
Um,
feel like, yeah, it's all about balance, I think, at the end of the day, and not feeling like you have to do something, but you want to do it. And if you want to spend most of your
yeah,
time, like, not doing that anymore, and that's okay with you, then good. But if you're feeling like, oh, well, I can't do that, I wish I could, but I can't because these kids, then you're gonna, yeah, that's when it gets dangerous.
yeah.
So we met through Hanson. We had a lot of concert experiences, but we also decided, like you said before, we decided to go to Tulsa, which is Hanson's hometown, because we were in the fan club and they invited all their fan club members to join them in Tulsa in this tiny studio, and they were going to re-record Middle of Nowhere, which was the first studio album on a big record label that they released, the one that Mbop was on. And they did it for the 10-year anniversary because it came out in 97, so they did this in 2007. And it was free. They just invited you, just had to RSVP in time, and they picked, a certain number of people. How many people do you think were there? Like 100? Not a lot.
Yeah, it was probably 100, maybe 120. They had two, they ended up doing two different shows.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But it
They
was
did
like,
too, yeah.
yeah, it was 100, maybe 120 people.
And they just basically let you sit on the floor, and they were re-recorded the whole album acoustically as like a thank you to fans, and then they released that acoustic recording. And they also released a DVD, and you and I are in the DVD a lot because we were like
Yep.
we were right in the front. Like, we just happened to get that spot right in the front. No one was in front of us. We were like, everyone sat around in like a
Oh,
circle,
so good.
and they were in the middle of.
You remember how we got that spot?
I don't. I thought
We
we just
we
kind of
we
went
were
for
on
it.
the we were in the second show. We were in the second show, and there was chairs all around, and we were in the second show, and a girl after the show basically broke down what to do, and they were like, stand, go right behind Isaac on the floor. She goes, nobody's taking the floor seats. Everybody ran for the chairs, and the floor seats are the way to go. We weren't even in the front of the line. We just knew exactly where to go because that girl told us, and we went right in front of Isaac because we could get a perfect view of all three of them, because we weren't behind the drums, we weren't behind anybody. We were right there. It was awesome.
Right, we were like literally in the front, the very front, and we were sitting on the floor,
Oh,
which because everyone else was on the chairs in the back, but we sat on the floor and like inches away from them.
yeah,
And it was surreal because it was like you were listening to them sing the album that you fell in love with when you were young.
yep,
And it was just like they were right there in front of you. It was only like an hour and a half, I think, but it was so definitely one of the best Hanson experiences I've had. And you and I are in the DVD a lot looking. You were funny. You're bobbing your head. I mean, I looked silly too, but like, and I didn't care. We knew we were being recorded, and they said it was going to be on DVD, but we didn't care. That we were like, we're this close. Who cares what we look like? And we just kind of.
Oh, I had the time of my life. It was like it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life is to go to that show. And like neither of us had money. We didn't have a hotel room. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was 24 hours we were in Tulsa, and we said, we don't need a hotel room. We'll just fly back the next morning and we'll do an all-nighter.
Yep.
And we made the decision, like, just very spontaneously, which I'm not a very spontaneous person because it gives me anxiety, but, like, that I did, and I'll always be grateful I did that. And
I must have talked you into it because I'm very spontaneous.
yeah, you're exact
I must
opposite.
have talked you into it. Yeah, because if I remember correctly, we ended up flying out of Rhode Island because it was like cheaper.
Yes.
But we didn't have money for a hotel room. The whole trip cost us like $300 each, or like $250 each. Um, yeah, it was. Yeah, we slept in the airport. We were just we were gonna stay up all night, but everything closed at like 10 o'clock.
No, but we went to Whataburger because that was the only thing that was open 24 hours. I remember sitting in the booth with you at Whataburger, and we were just looking at each other, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this, stay up all night. And we really thought we could. And it was just, I think, because of the energy of the day and the adrenaline, it sucked the energy right out of us. And yeah, and then we were like, let's just go to the airport now. And then we just fell asleep on the chairs. And then I remember where did you were going somewhere, and you stopped at that airport randomly, like years later. This was just a few years ago, and you sent me a picture of those chairs, and you said, do you remember these chairs?
I went to another Hanson day, and I passed those chairs, and I was like, oh, I know those chairs intimately.
You just randomly sent it to me, and you're like, remember these? And it just brought back so I couldn't believe you remembered exactly where it was.
So funny. Do you remember we tried to find their house, and we went on the longest bus ride on the
I don't remember. No. Oh, you mean their house growing up, like when they were little?
Yeah, we tried to find their house growing up, and we got on a bus to try to get there, and we ended up ended up on like a 3 or 4 hour bus ride.
Yeah, all that. And then I do remember we went to the intersection where they filmed Go, the music video for Go.
Yep.
And we took pictures there.
Yeah, we were really excited when we saw that. What's cool about Tulsa is you walk around and you see, because they film so much around the city. We walked around like we were like, it was like every time we turned a corner, you and I were just flipping out, excited.
Yeah.
About, holy shit, they filmed that there. Holy crap. Ah. Like it was before smartphones. I don't even know if we took pictures.
We did. We took a few because I have them, but I think they were on like disposable cameras.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to scan them, send them over to me because I am interested in them.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are in my storage as well, so, but I'll look to see what I can find.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did that, and that was amazing. Another thing we went to, they have a documentary about starting their own record label, and they were screening it around colleges across the country. And they went to Boston at Northeastern University, and you had to be a student to go to it. And I was in a different college at the time, and then I transferred over to Emerson, which they actually did a screening at Emerson, but that was before I went there. So some colleges let the public in, and then some didn't. They weren't letting the public in, and we're like, but we want to see the screening. We got to see this. We're real fans, and, we got it. So we somehow found our way in. I don't even remember how. I think a student helped us in or something.
You knew a guy that for $50 was going to give you his ID. and it ended up falling through.
Yeah, but that didn't happen.
And
No.
then it ended up being like really sketchy and like falling through. And then what happened was we ended up standing like where they were letting people in, and like, random college kids were coming by showing their ID and getting in, like just casually coming in. And at one point, the security guards, like, they weren't really paying attention. We were just like standing there like acting cool. And at one point, he walked a little bit away, and I just ran right behind him through the door, and you followed me. And like, I remember he grabbed my arm and I pulled it away, and then we just got lost in the crowd. And I remember like
Oh
him
my
looking
god, I
around
remember that
for
now.
us.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't even know you were behind me, and then you pulled up next to me a second later, and you're like, "Holy fuck! I didn't know you were gonna do that." Well, what's great about you is you just followed me doing whatever the hell I did. You just always followed.
Yeah, because I was
The
always
same with the elevator.
fascinated with how gutsy you were. Like, you didn't care. You were like, if I get caught, I get caught. You live only once, and that was you. And
I got in trouble so much as a kid that I got over being in trouble as an adult. Like, unless I'm gonna get arrested, I don't care. If somebody's just gonna yell at me or be mad at me, the worst that was gonna happen was they were gonna kick us off campus.
yeah, I mean, it
So what?
wasn't. And
You know?
I was fine with that too. I just was like, couldn't believe though. Like, I was actually, that's why I think I liked hanging out with you so much, because you were fun. You didn't care. You weren't like somebody else who would be like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. You actually, yeah, you lived it up. But yeah, we ended up in an elevator with them that day. I don't know how
Yeah,
that happened. I think because
but
they
to give
walked
yourself
in.
some credit, you had tenacity, because I was ready to give up when you were like, no, let's just hang out at the door and like listen to, like, like you had the tenacity. You were like, Janet, you need to come up with something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we tell the elevator story because that's really good. I forget that. I forget how that happened.
I don't remember every part, but I remember once we were in, we were waiting for them to get there. And then I think we were just standing by a door because it was weird. It was almost like it was meant to be, because I think we were talking about, I wonder where they're going to come in. Like, do you think they're already here, or are they just going to walk in, or what? And then all of a sudden, when we were talking about that, they actually came through this door near us with some people.
Yep.
And we're like, oh my god, that's... And then you walked up and you're like, let's go see if we can say hi to them or whatever. And then they went in this elevator. Like, no one saw them come in but us, because they was sort of on the side. And you just went in the elevator when they did. And I'm like, what is she doing? So then I just followed along. And then I remember Isaac saying, hi, how are you? And I'm just like, oh, hey. And I think Isaac thought we were part of, like, the school team that was helping them go to wherever they were going. Because they went in a room to do, I think, interviews before the screening. And I think he thought we were part of the college people that were leading them up in the elevator.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we were in an elevator with them, and then it dropped us off upstairs, and then they all, like, we just followed the crowd. I don't know if it was a meet and greet. It seemed like it was more like, for some college students that were in charge of it. And they were like,
students, it was like, so,
I don't know if they were doing like an interview.
We went in for like 2 seconds, and then somebody asked us, like, are you with the band? And we said yes.
And
then the
yes.
band manager was like, we didn't say yes. I said yes. And then the band manager was like, they're not with the band. They need to leave. And they kicked us out. But they didn't kick us off campus. They just kicked us out of that room. It's amazing what you can get away with when you're only 20 years old.
Well, no, yeah, because when they walked in the room, you walked right behind him. And I remember saying, Janet, what are you doing? We can't go in there. They're going to know that we're not part of the... And you ignored me. And you just went in there. So I was like hesitating. Do I go in? Do I not? And they were getting ready to close the door. And then that's when they said, oh, are you with the band? And then they're like, no, they're not with us. So then we got out. And you were like so excited we even got that far. But I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow.
Oh, dude, it was like one of the highlights of my life. I think that may have been before we went to Tulsa, because that was a highlight at one point. And then the Tulsa thing was the biggest thing I've ever done as far as Hanson's concerned.
I think it was after, honestly, because I think...
Was it after? Maybe. I don't remember.
It was around the same time, probably within a year or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was another memorable moment. But then I have to talk about this, Janet, and I don't know if you must remember this, but this is something that sticks out in my mind. I don't remember what show it was, but do you remember you were like, I want to go up there and play air guitar? And and I was like, you can't do that, Janet. You're going to get kicked out. You're like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to get kicked out of the show. And then you said, I'm going to wait till the last song and do it.
I remember that now. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Janet, whatever. I didn't believe you were going to do it. And then sure enough, they were like, this is our last song. And then you went up there and you like booked it up there before security could even get you. And you went up there. And I remember all their faces were kind of like, what is she doing? And then you turned around to face the crowd and you started like headbanging and playing air guitar. And when they realized what you were doing, they all started laughing. And I was like, oh my God.
So was they going to like try to attack him? I just wanted to play air guitar.
Yeah, they all started laughing. Yeah, and then they got you and kicked
That's
you
so
out.
funny.
And you texted me and you're like, I'll meet you outside.
That was great. Yeah, I remember that. I was in the Boston Globe.
Oh, you were?
They did a review of the Boston Globe, and one of the lines of that review was something along the lines of like, you know, it was complete with the fan jumping on stage and throwing themselves at the band, which I didn't do. I didn't touch them. I didn't go near them.
No,
I just went
you
up there
didn't.
and played. Yeah.
Once you were on the
I
stage,
respect
you
boundaries.
turned around and you faced the crowd and you were just...
I played air guitar. Yeah, I didn't, because like that's the fear, is that like somebody's gonna like try to hug them or something like that. I didn't do that. I just wanted to play air guitar. I was a little drunk.
Oh, yeah? It was amazing. Did you frame that piece about you? You should have cut it out and framed it.
No, I have no idea where it is or what happened to it. It didn't like have my name. It just said somebody threw themselves at the band.
Still, you know it was you.
And got kicked out. Yeah, it was 100% me. Nobody else jumped on stage during that. I've never seen somebody else do it.
No, unless they're
Jump on the
trying to
stage.
like hug them or something weird. But
Yeah, I didn't know that they laughed. This is the first time I'm finding out that maybe you told me at the time that they thought it was funny.
yeah, because I
and
remember I
laughed.
specifically looked at each of them when you were doing it to see their reaction. And at first they were like, what is she doing? And then their like concerned face turned to, as soon as you turned around to the crowd and started playing air guitar, they all started laughing. But that's why I loved hanging out with you too, because I love that kind of, you know, being a rebel kind of stuff, and when I don't have enough guts to do it myself, I like watching someone else do it.
My memory of that is basically like getting on stage and immediately getting kicked off stage. It was a really the whole incident took like less than 20 seconds.
Right.
Me doing it. But like if that interaction had taken a minute, you would have followed me, because we did that other one. Do you remember that there was a show in Rhode Island where they separated over and under 21, and then there was this like section in the middle of like dead space that nobody was allowed in? Do you remember that show?
Kind of,
And
yeah.
on the encore, I jumped the gate on the encore.
Yes.
And I was by myself in the front row, like on the encore. Like that was the show that Zach gave me his drumstick, and you waited half a song and then you joined me. You were right there with me. After that,
Yeah, after I knew
unless
you weren't
at that show. I think you were at that show. Yeah,
I do remember
I
you
wasn't gonna get arrested.
Yeah, I do remember you jumping over something, so it must have been, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how they were going to
It was fun
react.
stuff.
And then when I realized that you got away with it, I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to join her.
When I jumped over there, I was by myself for a while, and then literally the entire crowd ended up jumping the gate.
Yes.
Because the security guards were like, oh, what are we going to do? It's the last song.
Right. Yeah,
So.
Our Hanson adventures, they were a lot of fun. Like, when I go to shows now, I'm always by myself because I don't know anybody who wants to go with me. And I meet people at the shows, and I'll talk. Like, I met 2 girls last week, and we ended up becoming friends, and we were hanging out at the shows. But it's nothing like going with you. You will always be my favorite Hanson partner to go with.
Same, buddy. You're in my phone as Erin Hanson.
Nice. Yeah, and I've told so many friends about what you have done at their shows, and it's always brings on lots of laughs.
I forget that I'm a nut.
It's like, that should be a quote that you should put on your tombstone.
I forget that I'm a nut. Yeah, people remind me because it's like I'm just an accountant. I sit in an office all day and I look at spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Um, and then, but I am willing to do crazy shit.
All right, Janet, we're going to take a second because it's time for Love Letter Break. All right, Love Letter Break is a break in each episode that I take, and I ask my guests to come up with 1 to 3 people who have made an impact in their life, to name the people and give them just a message of gratitude to kind of inspire listeners out there to do the same and to tell people that they matter when they matter. So, Janet, how many people did you pick for your Love Letter Break?
I chose one.
One, okay, and who is it?
My grandmother.
Your grandmother, okay. What did you want to
Yeah.
tell your grandmother?
She was my favorite person in the world. She's probably the funniest person in the world. She's how I got like my no fear of getting in trouble. Like I remember one time I went to a ballet with her, and it was at the Wilbur, and in the lobby of the Wilbur, she went to go smoke a cigarette, and she just lit the cigarette in the Wilbur lobby and just walked out, and like people were yelling at her, and she just ignored them. And she was just like, "I want to smoke a cigarette." And it's just like, yeah, who gives a fuck? Like, just smoke a cigarette. And yeah, she was a dynamite of a person, and my favorite person I'll ever know.
That's awesome. And what would you say to her if you could right now?
Just say I love you, and I miss you, I guess.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, yeah, we gotta move along, and we have to talk about American Idol. I specifically remember an instance in the car when we were on our way to a Hanson show, and you used to tell me, I will be famous someday. I don't know how, but I will be famous. And, and you said, I'm gonna do something that's gonna make me famous. And I said, I believe you, Janet. And like, I did believe you. I just wasn't sure like how, or I was thinking, well, she probably will someday. So then here comes American Idol. American Idol, everybody knows what that is. It's a show, singing competition show. And they did auditions in your area, and you went for it, and you knew you couldn't sing, right? To be fair.
Yeah.
You just went completely
Terrible.
as a joke. And you became probably one of the most famous, like, quote unquote rejects, or person that did the audition who didn't make it in but makes the show of the terrible auditions.
Yeah.
Briefly, tell me, how did that come about? Did you just see that they were auditioning and you said, I'm going to go and do this? And then how did you get to the point of being like in front of like Simon Cowell and all of that?
I'm famously a terrible singer. It's just something about me is I can't sing. Everybody knows it. Like we used to do like karaoke in the living room when I was that age, and like I was just awful. And like I couldn't like we played the American Idol video game. I was awful at it. And basically I always said like I'm gonna go on American Idol and just do it. And basically the audition came to Boston, and I was kind of talking about wanting to do it, but I didn't want to go by myself. And my friend Nina was like, I'll go with you. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. And I said to her, I couldn't figure out what to wear. And I said to her, if you pick out an outfit for me, I promise I'll wear whatever you give me. And she picked out like a pink belly shirt and like ripped jeans. Um, and I wore it. So it was like I was a little overweight. It was like a pink belly shirt, and then we the first day you have to drive all the way to Foxborough, put your name on the list, and then the next morning you have to show up at 5 a.m. and basically wait in line all day long at Foxborough. And it was raining, it was pouring, and there was all these talented people, like unbelievable talent, um, just singing their hearts out like around, and like they were forming these little a cappella groups, and it was really cool to like just see how good people were. And I was hanging around my section, talking to people, talking about how this was going to be our big break, and like how our dream was to be on American Idol, and how we really wanted to do it. And I was very careful every time that they had us sing as a group that I didn't sing because I didn't want to let go of my cover that I was a bad singer. And what ends up happening, it's like it was like 10,000 people that auditioned that day, and you go in groups of five, and it's a bunch of tents. There's probably 30 people auditioning at a time, so there's like eight tents, and it's groups of five, rows of five, and then it's like 10 deep rows of fives, and they bring you in section by section. So I was next to people that I'd been hanging out with all day long, and they sang, I sang, like I sang, somebody else sang, I sang, I spelt it out, Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, as loud as I could, to the point where my friend on the other side of the stadium heard my high note, and knew I was up. And then what happened was I didn't break character. Like people started laughing. It was humiliating, to be honest, because it was all these people that like none of them would look at me after. And then there was somebody that was trying to be a reject right before me, who broke character and laughed. And the guy was like, "That was funny, but we're actually looking for like people who can sing." And I went up, and he stopped, and he was like, "Do you think you're good?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Why do you think you're good?" What, like he drilled me and tried to get me to break character. And it was just one of those things that I'd waited in line for 12 hours in the rain. I refused to break character. And I was like, "I'm good." I was on the American Idol game. Like, "I'm good. Like let me through." And they let me through. And what happens is you basically sign away your life, and then they say like, "We'll get in contact with you." And then 3 months later, I got a text message that said like, "Your audition is going to be next Thursday, location to be determined." And then that like week, they said, "Be downtown Boston." And then an hour before I was supposed to be there, they gave me a location of a hotel. I went to the hotel, and then that's where they film like the beginning sequences where like everybody's in a room and it looks like they're waiting, and like when you're in the hallway and it looks like you're waiting for the audition, that kind of thing. They film a lot of the show during that audition phase, and so it was everybody that got passed. That you do two auditions that day. One audition is like in front of producers, and if you pass that audition, you go into another audition that's like incredible. It's basically the American Idol set. It's the exact American Idol set, and but it's just producers you're performing in front of. You're not performing in front of the actual judges. If you get past that audition, you get to see the real judges in another month or so. So I did that audition, nailed it, sang my heart out, danced. I got the golden ticket. I ran out, made a big deal about getting the golden ticket, and then they called me back for the audition with the real judges, which was in Faneuil Hall. That was like an all day thing. You spend the day like, they interview you. Like I probably spent 3.5 hours doing interviews. And then you do the audition. And again, it was the same kind of thing where I was hanging around people. There's this one girl that I was getting along with so well, and we were like we became good friends because we had done two or three auditions together, and we had become good friends. And then she wouldn't look at me after I became a psychopath in the audition. Um, so because they kept me behind closed doors, they did all of my interviews. Some of the interviews, like everybody gets to see, and some of the interviews are behind closed doors. And because I was so crazy, they did all my interviews behind closed doors. So it was like a surprise that, like, oh, I'm a nutcase,
Right.
when it aired. So it was, it was a blast. It was like, and that's why I started comedy, was because I had so much fun doing that audition, and it was so fun to perform. But the problem is that I literally have no talent as far as performance is concerned. Like I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't do anything. And comedy doesn't take talent. It just takes work. And that's how I got into comedy. I signed up for like a comedy 101 class down the street, like maybe a week or two after the audition. And then the rest is from there.
I didn't realize it took that long of a process just to get to that final audition.
Yeah.
But you wore the same
Yeah, it was
outfit. You
months.
wore that same outfit on the televised audition, right?
Yeah, you have to wear the exact same thing for all the auditions. So they're filming the entire time. So they use you on all three auditions.
Okay, and then you ended up on I think it was the first episode of that season. That was it 2010, right?
I was the first person it's the first audition that Paula wasn't on.
Okay. So if you go back on American Idol, and it's on YouTube as well, you were the very first audition on that season, and you were in front of the judges, and you were wearing that belly shirt, and now you sang Pocketful of Sunshine, right?
Yeah, I sang Pocketful of
And
Sunshine.
did you get to choose that song, or was that something they chose for you?
They give you a list of about 200 to 300 songs that you could choose from. Um, I wanted to do Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, but it wasn't on the list. And Pocket Full of Sunshine was one of the only songs that was also on the video game. And my thing was like, I wanted to be able to win on the video game. I practiced my ass off, honestly, for that audition. Um, like I practiced so hard that at one point my friends were like, "Janet, you're not going to get through. Like it doesn't matter how hard you're not going to get through." Um, but I'm so like musically uninclined that it's really hard for me to memorize the lyrics. So like just I probably spent 70 to 80 hours practicing that song and it was horrific. But just memorizing the lyrics took me that long and getting the notes right and whatnot. Way out of key, but yeah.
Yeah, and they basically made your whole intro about you doing the American Idol game, playing it. They told your backstory about how you were practicing there. And then they made you do the whole like amping yourself up in the bathroom. You said they kind of insinuated that, right? Or
Yep.
they instigated that.
Kind of I brought it up. So like the two stories they were gonna have of me, they were either gonna be like the like accountant who she sits in an office all day, but actually she's wild and crazy. That was going to be like one story, and then the other story was a video game, and they were like deciding which story to use. So they interviewed me on both. But yeah, I'm just sorry. What was the question? I forget.
Because it shows you amping yourself up in the bathroom before you went out on stage.
I went to a seminar, and I actually still do this. I went to a seminar on like job interviews, and she said that like part of job interviews is that you need to be high energy. You can't be low energy. And people are low energy because they're shy and they're nervous because they're in an interview. But being nervous in an interview comes off as not confident. So in order to like just get your heart rate up, just scream, like yell in the car and like look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you're awesome, you're gonna crush it, you're gonna do great. And I don't do it to the extent to which I did it on TV, but I definitely still do that. It's, positive self-talk is a good thing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And they made it seem like a
it's
funny
important.
thing though with yours. Like they were kind of making it seem like over the top.
Yeah, I don't do it to the extent to which like they film it because they brought me in because they were like, how do you get this energy? And I talked about how I pump myself up for job interviews and scream in the car and tell myself I'm awesome. And then like, at some point during the day, they came and got me and they brought me to the bathroom. And I was like, what's going on? And I was having my period. I thought they were going to tell me that like my blood was showing.
Oh my
And
god.
and like she was like, "Can you show us what you do in the bathroom?" And I was so relieved that I like wasn't having period issues that uh I just did it. And like every time I stopped, they were like, "Can you give us a little more? Can you give us a little more?" So it was a blast.
And then you went on the stage and Simon told you you were terrible.
Yeah. Actually, I will tell you, Simon, this did not air. Before I sang, he was like, "You're going to be a star." He was like, "I really like you." He was like, "I hope to God you can sing because if you can sing, you're going to go really far in this competition, but I have a feeling you can't sing." Um, it didn't air, but like he was like, "I really like you." He was legitimately disappointed that I sucked. But he said before I actually sang, he was like, "I'm pretty sure you can't sing, but I really want you to be able to sing."
Yeah, and I've
Um,
heard that he's actually a really nice guy.
yeah,
He's just, gonna tell you if you can't sing, and that's kind of his deal, but or his image. But he's
yeah,
yeah, and you could tell he's a nice guy, like when you see him outside of that whole thing. But that is hilarious. And then you you mistook one of the judges for Paula Abdul. Did you do that on purpose, or was that? I think that was like a legitimate mistake.
That I did on purpose.
Oh, you did it on purpose.
That
Okay.
I did on purpose. Yeah, that I did on purpose. There was like a new judge named Kara who I planned on getting her confused with Paula Abdul and calling her Paula.
And she was like, "It's not Paula, honey. I'm not Paula."
Yeah. That was like something that like I planned on doing that. Like that was something that was like something that like if I can get that to happen, I plan on calling her the wrong name.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And they liked it too, apparently, because they aired it.
Yeah, they aired. That's I think why I ended up the first audition of the season was because it was the first season that Paula Abdul wasn't there, so it addressed Paula Abdul not being there without making it a big deal.
Yeah.
But it addressed that off the bat. And that's why they put me first. You mentioned that I'm always top 10 worst rejects, etc. I'm actually not. And the reason is after the show aired, I got fired from my job.
For that?
And
for doing that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
For doing that. Because I'm an accountant. I had clients.
Right.
And I freaked out because I wasn't a stand-up comic at that point. I was just an accountant. And I went on every single YouTube video that had me, and I marked it as I tried to rid it off the internet. I marked it as copyright infringement.
Oh wow.
So you have to kind of search a little bit to find me. There's only 2 or 3 videos on YouTube of me. Like if you search like American Idol rejects, like you're not going to find me because I scorched the internet of it. At one point, it wasn't on the internet at all, and then it popped up a little bit while, which like was so stupid of me. If I knew I was going to do comedy, you know, I had over 3, 4, 5 million views, and I had no understanding of how hard it is to get 1 million views on YouTube. Like I just was like, I don't want that on the internet, and I got kicked off the internet.
Yeah, and I remember seeing you on, because you told me you were going to be on it, and I watched you when it aired, and then I looked on the internet, and I saw you were everywhere, and yeah, people were always, like, leaving comments, do you think she really thought she could sing? How could she think she could sing? And, like, all this stuff, and,
Yeah.
And then that what you were wearing, the belly shirt, was, like, a big thing, and then
Yep.
They asked you to come back, right, for the finale?
Yeah, I did the finale. I was a backup dancer for Dane Cook on the finale.
That's amazing.
Because I was I got the worst audition of the season award. I got the Golden Idol award that year for the worst audition of the season. Yeah.
Like the golden raspberry.
Yeah. They ended up cutting it. They didn't end up giving me the trophy, but I won the Golden Idol, the worst audition of the season.
But you were up there dancing with Dane Cook, and they had you wear that same outfit.
Yep, they had us wear the same outfit. Backup dancer for Dane Cook.
You're forever like associated with the pink belly shirt, crop top, whatever you want to call it. Do you still have that?
Yeah.
Or was it your friend's?
Somewhat. I didn't throw it out. I don't know where it is, but I didn't throw it out.
You should frame it.
Yeah. You know what is sad? I used to have the number, and then I had a viewing party and I lost the number. So I would frame it with the number, but like I don't want to frame just the shirt.
Yeah, yeah. The number that they put on you, right?
Yeah, the number they put on me, I had that for like a long time. And then I lost that's completely lost.
But what was it like once it aired? Did you have people reaching out to you on social media? Like how was that? Did you just get all these random people?
It was the most stressful 48 hours of my entire life.
Oh my God.
I'm bipolar, and it was my first manic episode. It was on the train, like people were like, you know what really bothered me is people were mocking me to my face. Like people were coming up to me and being like, "You were so good, like you should have gone to Hollywood," and like they were like acting like I didn't know it was a joke. Like they were just mocking me to my face.
Oh wow.
And like on the train, like people were like taking pictures of me without like trying to make it so that like I didn't know they were taking pictures of me.
Yeah.
And they were like, and some people were like cool, but like there was a lot of like you felt like it was just paranoia of like all of a sudden everybody's like looking at me, and
you literally became famous overnight.
Yeah, it was crazy. And what's so crazy about it, and it's part of like how I am with comedy, and that I never want to be that famous again. It was so stressful. But what's terrible about it is that 2 days later, the guy, I don't know if you remember Pants on the Ground. it was another bad audition. He ended up going viral, and all of a sudden I was shit. Nobody gave a fuck about me. Um, like nobody wanted to hear about it anymore. Like nobody recognized me anymore. Like I wasn't trending on Twitter anymore. Like like I had all these I was overwhelmed. Star Magazine called me, like all these magazines were calling me, the Boston Globe. I didn't take any interviews because I was so like stressed out about like what was going on. And then 48 hours later, I was like, I'll do an interview. And nobody wanted to interview me. Nobody gave a shit
Wow.
because like the 48-hour news cycle was over. And it was just like, I just couldn't stop talking about, I was obsessed with it and nobody else cared.
So once you
But
got used to it,
it was
it's like people were
crazy.
over it by then. Once you got used to
Yeah, exactly. Once I was yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was just like all of a sudden nobody cared. And being famous, I just remember a lot of it. It was so much anxiety. And it was so much anxiety and so much like I don't it's hard to describe because I was also manic at the time, so it's hard to like really describe what was going on. Because like my mind was racing, I wasn't sleeping, like I had like all these grandiose thoughts of like what's going to happen. I'm going to be a millionaire. And like nothing happened that I thought was going to happen. What happened was another viral video came and I was no longer the most viral video in the country. And that's just how entertainment business is.
yeah, I mean, they don't treat
Um,
people like people. They treat them like just, yeah, entertainment and just throw
yeah,
them out.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And you were trending on Twitter. That is amazing. What was trending exactly?
yeah.
Was it your name or bad audition or?
I think I forget.
Mm.
It was like trending on Twitter. This was 12 years ago. It wasn't as hard as it is now.
Yeah.
Um, things trended all the time on Twitter back then. But it was like I want to say there was like three of me. Jumping Girl was trending. I know that. And then like Janet at one point was trending, like hashtag Janet. I wish I had a screenshot. Because at one point there was like three or four trending topics and they were all me.
That's
It
amazing.
was if I had any inkling of wanting to do comedy back then that I do now, like I could have ran with it, but at the time I was just an accountant. So I just wanted it to be done and over. Because my goal with American Idol, I didn't think it would like become this. Like I thought that like it would go on the air and like I had a viewing party and I wanted like my friends to see it. That's all I wanted out of it. But then like I was on the commercials and stuff like that coming up to the audition and like people were coming from the woodwork from high school and middle school and being like, "Hey, I saw you." Like and it ended up just being this whole thing. But it was if it's the best thing I've ever done in my life, like I'll look back on my life happy.
Right, right.
Like if I never do anything better than that, like I'll be
But
happy.
you made people laugh. You entertained people for that
Yeah,
moment.
it was a blast. You know what I mean? Like it was fun. Like it's a video that I love. My favorite thing in the world now is knowing somebody for 3 or 4 years and then being like, "Hey, watch this." Um,
Yeah, throw it
uh,
on them.
yeah, especially somebody that knows me professionally as like an accountant to just be like, "Watch this," you
Do
know?
you still get recognized today, or is it long gone?
No, no. I don't think I've been recognized. I got recognized in a job interview about 9 months after it aired, and that was probably the last time I got recognized. I stopped getting recognized about after 2 days. It went significantly down, and then I stopped getting recognized completely about a month later.
Wow, that quickly. Or
Um,
maybe people do
it was
recognize you,
really
but they
fast.
just don't tell you.
No, people recognize me from comedy more, stand up.
Mm-hmm.
But that I still don't get recognized very often. More people know me in comedy. They just don't come up to me because I'm not a famous person. Like they can see me whenever they want. Um,
Yeah.
but like I have a show a block away from my house, so like people in my neighborhood know me. But it's more of like I know that person than like that person is famous. I want to take a picture with them.
But you must get people come up to you after your comedy shows. They ask for pictures and autographs and stuff.
No,
No?
no, No, they'll ask my Instagram and they'll follow me on Instagram. People don't.
Wow.
The only reason why people want pictures is that they want to put it on Instagram and be like, I met this famous person. But you take a picture with me, nobody knows who the fuck I am. So nobody's impressed.
Right,
Like,
but there's
the
some
thing
good
is,
people
it's
who would
like,
want just for them, I would think. No? They like you as a comic?
nah, no. I feel I'm pretty jaded when it comes to people. They want something from you. They don't. Yeah, maybe they're like, I want a picture in case you become famous someday. I take a picture with somebody probably about once a month, and it's usually somebody that sees me like at a coffee shop or something, and it'll be like, "Oh, my girlfriend really likes you. Like, let me take a picture with you, and I'll send it to my girlfriend." It's something like that.
Well, we're gonna circle back to you when you have your own Netflix comedy special, and then I bet you'll get
Yeah,
recognized.
circle back, and then more people will recognize me.
So yeah, we talked about American Idol, and that's what led into your comedy career now.
Yes, that's what led into it.
You just signed up for comedy shows, and now is it more you signing up for them now, or them reaching out to you on a regular basis?
People reach out to me. So it's like I started, and you do a bunch of open mics where it's like you just sign up and it's like really awful, and it's a lot of work coming in and not a lot of feedback. It's not fun. And then you slowly start getting regular shows and you start getting better and better shows. And now I'm to the point where I'm not getting the biggest shows in the world, but I'm working every day and I get asked 99% of the time to do shows. So it's really great there. I have my own weekly show at the Burren in Somerville that I host, which is great. And then Thursday through Saturday, I do other shows around, usually Boston, sometimes New Hampshire and Maine.
Have you ever done like out of the state shows, like besides the New England area?
I've done a bunch in Australia.
Wow.
Uh, I just got back from the Asheville Comedy Festival in North Carolina a couple weeks ago. I do New York City a little bit, but I honestly I don't travel very much. But I've done a bunch of like regional comedy festivals. I've done Rhode Island Comedy Festival, Hampton Beach Comedy Festival, Women in Comedy Festival, a bunch that are in the area. But yeah, I get around. The biggest obstacle for me is time, in that I don't have a lot of time to travel and go to more places to do more shows. So I do a lot in the New England area.
And you got back in accounting eventually, and now you do that as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I never quit accounting. I like accounting. It's something that like it's a mundane thing that you do during the day, and people think it's boring. I think it's interesting, and so I do accounting 9 to 5, and then I they don't know I do comedy. And then I do comedy at night. It's like having two jobs, but one job is cool,
Yeah,
and that's accounting.
and that's what a lot of comedians do, especially out here in LA. They the comedy store
Yeah.
and all that. It's always the same people every week, and they do exactly what you do: have day jobs and then do it at night.
hmm
Your shtick is like you're that awkward comic, right? That's kind of how you present yourself.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm a little awkward. I am how I am in real life.
You are. And I told my
It's
friend that
basically how I
too.
am.
I showed my
Yeah.
friend one of your comedy videos, and I said, you might think she's putting on an act, but that's exactly how she is.
Yeah. I'm very authentic. I'm very much exactly how I am. Like, I don't know what to do with my right hand. I get a little angry. I get very opinionated, and most of my opinions are really dumb. And then I back them up with facts. And eventually I get the audience to agree with me that sex is stupid. Um, that's one of my premises. And it's fun. You can, with comedy, you can like, if you say something right, you can get an entire, you can get 200 people on your side. And they're just, anything you say, they're going to go with, because like you have them in your pocket. It's so fun.
Right. Do you have like a memorable moment you've ever had on stage? Like a most memorable, I
No,
guess. No.
I don't know. Last week I called somebody a whore and I got away with it.
Oh my god.
That was fun.
Why'd you call him a whore?
Because I have a joke that goes, I'm an accountant, that's why I'm just like a whore. And I was like doing my act, and she kept interrupting me, and like she was trying to be part of the show, and I was like, what do you fucking like,
Oh,
tell me, like, what's your goddamn deal? Like, are you an accountant? Like why do you have so many opinions about, because I have a bunch of material about accounting, and she was like, I'm in finance. I was like, oh, it makes sense, you're a fucking whore.
oh my
And
god. So she
uh
was a heckler, basically.
yeah, she was kind of a heckler. But it's just fun to just like be able to call somebody a whore and get the entire audience to be behind you, because it's such a rude thing to say to somebody,
Yeah, and you
but
only on a comedy
it's fun.
stage.
Yeah.
Oh,
Normally you could, and if I wasn't doing well, I wouldn't be able to get away with that.
right.
But because the audience liked me, it takes a lot to lose the goodwill. Once you had the goodwill of an audience, you could get away with a lot.
Right. Do you have a favorite comedian?
Uh, Gary Goldman is my favorite comedian.
Nice.
Yeah, I like Tig Notaro a lot. I like Maria Bamford a lot, but Gary Goldman's my favorite.
What's next for your comedy career? Do you just going to continue doing these shows? Do you have any goals? Do you want to do like a special someday if you were offered it?
Yeah, I would love to do a special. I want to tour Australia. My brother lives in Australia. I want to spend 5 years touring Australia. That's kind of like my goal. And part of doing that is I need to be successful in the US so that I could get a visa to go to Australia. So yeah, it would be great to get a special. Probably not next year, but the year after. I'm probably going to record an hour special, and put it on YouTube. And yeah, I have a bunch of stuff going on. I try not to get too ahead of myself. Like I said, like I don't want what happened with American Idol to happen with comedy, where it just becomes not fun and there's too much going on. So right now I'm just having fun with it, and it's great passive income. Maybe I'll move to LA or New York at some point, but right now, life is kind of gravy. I'm just getting better at comedy, and eventually, hopefully, make a move.
Do you have advice for anybody that may want to have a comedy career or somebody that struggled like you and was shy and feeling kind of awkward? Like, what advice would you give, like, some younger person out there who's thinking of possibly doing a career in comedy or some other entertainment, but they're a little hesitant and scared?
Well, the key to comedy is to just keep doing it, and to keep going out. Like I was god awful for years and years and years, and I just kept doing it, and eventually things clicked, and I ended up being good. That's a lot of it is keeping track of your mental health, not drinking too much, and just keeping at it is all you really have to do in comedy is just keep at it and keep working. There's people who never get funny, don't get me wrong, but um, a lot of it is just so many funny people stop trying and they just never go anywhere, and they just stay stagnant, and you have to do it 3 to 5 times a week or there's no point.
Right.
Is That's my
You have
advice.
to be committed.
You have to be committed. It has to, yeah, you have to basically not have a life outside of it.
Like, do you ever get nervous? Like, how do you get over your nerves?
I'm gonna be nervous this weekend. I'm headlining a big show this weekend, and I'm gonna be nervous because my family's gonna be there. I don't like talking about sex in front of my family.
Right.
Um, so I'm hoping. I don't know how much time I'm doing. I'm I think I'm doing like 40 minutes. I'm hoping that like something happens and they have to cut my time so that I don't have to talk about. I get nervous when my family's going to be there. Is basically the answer. But I don't get nervous on a daily basis. I've done it. I've probably done 5,000 shows at this point. So like you get really used to it.
You just kind of put yourself out there and forget about the nerves if you can. Do you
Yeah.
think about anything that helps you?
Uh, like when I started, like my hands used to shake. I used to really get nervous when I started. Um, and a lot of that was like the positive self-talk is huge. As far as like, even if you think you're lying to yourself, to tell yourself you're going to do great and you're going to be awesome and like everything's going to work out, like it works 90% of the time because it gets your confidence and your energy up as, as far as like getting up there goes. Uh,
Like, fake it till
and
you
the thing
make
with
it type of
comedy
deal?
is that, with the exception of like Dave Chappelle, everybody stunk when they started. Dave Chappelle is like the only comic that was good when he started. Everybody else stinks.
Yeah.
Look at any comic that's a year in and they stink. It's a skill. It's not as much of a talent as it is a skill.
Interesting. Tell me about your shows coming up end of September. What shows do you have coming up that if people are in the Boston area, they can check you out?
End of September, I am headlining the George in Providence on September 23rd. And I'm headlining the Article 24 in Brighton on September 29th. Those are the two big shows that I have coming up.
Nice. And they can just go on the websites of those places to get the tickets?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can Google it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure it's on the Google machine.
So you have social media. I know you have a YouTube page where you post your comedy videos a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So what's your YouTube?
My Instagram is janet.mcnamara. My YouTube doesn't have a URL. You just have to Google it. I only have like 12 subscribers, so they won't give me a URL till I get 100.
Oh my God, you need more.
I know. Yeah, subscribe to my YouTube so I get more. And then I have a really shitty website, janetmcnamara.com.
It's not even done, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that describes you perfectly, though. You just put what you need on there, and the rest you don't care. You're like, leave it alone. It's like...
Yep. Yeah. It's the world's worst website, but yeah, go on and then offer to do it for free, and I'll let you do my website for free.
Yeah, you have your name, your dates coming up for your shows, and you have the American Idol video. That's it.
What else do you need?
Oh, your contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they search Janet McNamara on YouTube, and then your page will come up, and all this will be in the description for this episode, the links and everything, so you can easily get to it. All right, so thank you so much, Janet, for being here, but I have one last question I ask everybody. It's a simple question, but it's also kind of difficult, and it was inspired by a social anxiety disorder I had as a kid, where I was very anxious to talk in front of certain people in certain social situations, which sounds like you had something similar, but I realized the importance of using your voice. So this is the question I like to end every episode with, and it is, if you could only say one more sentence or phrase out loud one more time for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Leave me alone.
And that is that. Amazing. Probably one of the best answers. All right, Janet. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was awesome to catch up with you.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, and go check her out. She's hilarious. And you're actually on your way to a show right now, so we got to wrap it up. But yeah, thank you. It was great to have you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. As always, I'm going to end the episode with a relative inspirational quote. And this one's from author Adrienne Posey. Comedians are people who embarrass themselves in style.